We're here with James Thompson, write-in candidate running for governor, state of Florida.
Hello, everyone.
Do you believe that the government should have a balanced budget?
Yes, I do.
How should the government balance the budget?
Well, I think that we should have unbiased oversight, unbiased financial oversight, and balancing the budget by focusing on the people in this country. Not saying not helping other people, but we have homeless people here. We have a whole lot of homeless people. I'm a veteran. We have homeless veterans walking the street. And that's because the budget is not balanced properly. It favors a certain group, and I think that makes it unbalanced. And the focus of any government, financially or otherwise, should be on the people, we, the people. And we can do that by applying a moral compass that's not politically driven, not driven by a political view or a political party. And that is the obstruction, I think, that's in the way of us balancing the government in a way that it benefits the people.
What about entitlements?
Well, I don't have a problem with entitlements if they're not applied just for those who have, and they overlook the have-nots. Entitlements should be service for services provided, I should say, for services provided, fair compensation, for labor, whatever. So I don't have an issue with entitlements in just the word itself. It's the application. And also it depends on who is determining the entitlement, because some people are biased pertaining to how they apply these entitlements.
What about the military?
Well, as you see, I'm a combat veteran, 2 wars, Vietnam and Desert Storm. If you want to use the word entitlement, yeah, let's use the word entitlements there. And there's where you use that word. VA compensation, benefits. And right now, it is a dogfight trying to get compensation for services provided. Your DD-214, some people may know what that is and some may not. It identifies the theaters that you operated in, it identifies your service, your awards, and everything that you're given. It's your resume, military resume. And when you have veterans, now let me say this, war affects individuals differently. I'm a boots on the ground Marine, and I was in the Army as well, doing service in Vietnam, as I said, in Desert Storm. So it affects people differently. And when you have to fight the country that you serve, put your life on the line for, and when you have a document that has been created once you have been separated to identify what you have done and where you have been and the awards you have received, veterans shouldn't have to fight so hard. Now, let me say this, coming on this before claims. You know, they talk about they don't have enough people to process claims. Well, that can be resolved because you have a lot of veterans like myself who will volunteer. They don't have to process claims for their state, but they'll volunteer to get that heavy load off of some of these claims processors who are overwhelmed with all these claims. We can come up with a system that would allow volunteer veterans, they don't want any money, or you can compensate them, but then they work in the administration, they know how to process claims, or their minimal training. And this backload of claims that they keep talking about can be resolved, because it looks like they want us hold out until we die. So, you know, entitlements for veterans, entitlements for the military, that's when you use the word entitlement.
What about bureaucracy?
No, 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 no. You know, when you have state officials uh, running things, but you have elected officials who are not, then the bureaucracy is, I think it's something that we should eradicate in our government. Yeah, we have to agree to disagree, but the benefit is for the people. Any system that we have, government that we have, is for we people. And when you have the courts that are controlled by political views of politicians and by bureaucracy, you have issues. This country, the United States of America, my home, we should not have any room for that kind of nonsense, but it's there. And when you have it, it leads to manipulation, it leads to contamination, greed, and a broken moral compass. And that's one of the issues that we're facing today. It has nothing to do with skin color. It has to do with contaminated thinking. Bureaucracy, no, no, no. Not for it.
Do you believe that America is a great country?
Without a doubt. I've been in many foreign countries. I've been in countries where people will cut off a leg, arm, or whatever, just to get over here. America's not perfect. I agree with that. I agree that there's some things that need to be resolved, some horrible things. But it's for, as a comparison with other countries. No. Philippines, and women and the children are doing just about anything. The people are doing just about anything. Vietnam, Okinawa, Korea, Germany, places like that. Italy is not bad. Germany is not bad. But there's some places, Saudi Arabia, there's some places that once you go there, you thank God for being an American. So yeah, this is a great country. And it's flawed, I agree. And I think it's flawed by political rhetoric instead of having a moral compass. I think it's flawed because we have people hiding behind their political views and disregarding the needs of we the people. They say we the people, but it's not we the people. It's we who are in charge of the people. And that creates the problem. Yes, America is great. I have no doubt in my mind. I'm biased towards America. Yes.
What is your position on the First Amendment?
Free speech. I'm okay with free speech. I think that we should be allowed to be able to express ourselves. But I think when we have the right of free speech, I think we have a moral obligation to truth. Especially in our politics, not in our personal opinion, not in our bids for power or to stay in control, not for my political party, because regardless of what truth reveals itself to be, truth is what I say it is. And that contaminates free speech. Yes, I'm for free speech when it's guided by morals and ethical boundaries and applied without bias. Some people can say and do what they want because they hold a certain position in a certain office and they get away with certain things. So yeah, I think it should be regulated. But I have no problem with free speech.
What about hate speech?
Hate speech should be punished by law. Yeah, it's still free speech, but it creates a hazardous environment. It endangers people. It creates division and unrest. And even in the Bible, it tells us in the 10 Commandments to not bear false witness. So when you're speaking from a point of view of hate, you're not engaging the truth. and you're only speaking from that falseness, what you think in your mind, and the contamination. So, no, hate speech should be disallowed and not tolerated, no matter what race, creed, or color, because then we'll have what the United States stands for in the eyes of people in other countries that are trying to do everything they can to get here. No, no hate speech, and it should be dealt with.
What about the internet?
The internet, there's nothing wrong with the internet. It just needs to be monitored properly. And people are manipulating it to benefit them. When you have people who are hacking from other countries into the internet and creating issues that divide the people that live in this country, I think that we should have more oversight and should be monitored better. And certain things, hate speech, should not be allowed. Free speech, as I said, yes, but when it causes a divisive atmosphere, dangerous, then free speech, as I said, was denied or not allowed in the Bible. And people talk about the Bible. Thou shalt not bear false witness. Remember that one. So I don't think there's a real major problem with the internet. I think it's the application of it and the monitoring of it.
Once we set the precedent of limiting speech, what is there to stop us from losing free speech?
Well, I didn't say limit. I wouldn't say limit. What I would say was to hold speech accountable. If you're going to use your free speech to spread lies, disharmony, it's your right to have that ability to speak what you think. But then I think when you're held accountable for the actions, for what you've done after you've spoken what you had to say, then people will be more careful about what they open their mouths to say. So no, I'm not trying to limit free speech. I'm saying that we should put in place a mechanism that causes people to realize there is an accountability for some of the dangerous and divisive things that you say. I can say what I want to say. Again, that goes against what the Bible says. So we can't exceed God laws. You know, we got people with God complexes, think they can do better than God. So no, I'm not talking about limiting your free speech. I'm talking about identifying what will be allowed. And for example, if I'm talking to a bunch of Marines, I talk to them in a different way than when I'm talking to a room full of women. See, that's a decision. That's using wisdom, but I can say the same thing. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. So I'm not talking about limiting speech, but to allow someone to get on a platform and cause this country, which I fought towards, to be contaminated, and then the people to be at each other's throat because of lies and deception that have been created and originated through free speech. It has to be dealt with, monitored, not limited. Say what you want to say, but better responsibility with what you say.
What is your position on the Second Amendment?
Let's go back in history. They used to have clubs. Then they had swords. Then they had single fire muskets. Guns don't hurt people. You can lay a gun or a knife on a table, and if no one moves it, you can leave there for a year, come back and be in that same place. I'm a soldier, so I'm familiar with weapons. Carried one most of my adult life. But it's the contaminated mind. When you talk about mental health doesn't mean that you have to be walking down the street with foam coming out your mouth or blowing snot out your nose, some irregular activity that causes people to say, oh, he's something wrong with him. No, that's not the mental illness or sickness that we need to deal with. The mental sickness that we need to deal with is contaminated thinking that creates racism. That contaminated thinking that divides a country that says, united we stand. We need to develop methods to make that a true statement. So I don't believe there's a problem with guns. There's a problem with the laws pertaining to the guns. For example, this individual who killed these homeless people, atrocity, should never have had one. There is here in Tampa a gun show every year. I've gone to them, and you can buy anything you want. There should be some regulation. There should be some laws that deal with it. 18 years old and an AR-15, come for what? They're going out and hunting buffalo. So there should be a law. There should be, well, when I say there should be a law, there should be an applied concept that is developed for the safety of our people, that does not what I'm looking for, take away from so-called right to bear arms. The right to bear arms does not say you have the right to murder. It has to be separated. The right to bear arms and the right to murder.
What is your belief on big government?
Well, I think big government is better. Big government is better than chaotic greed and manipulation and selfishness on a small government scale, where I have a seat as a governor and I can tell the president, see it, wouldn't want to be here. We're going to do it this way. That's not being united. That's contrary to what this country stands for. So I don't have a problem with big government. Matter of fact, when it's manipulated by a political party, it's fine when the moral compass is applied properly. When the government steps in because there is a misapplication of the Constitution, or people's rights are being violated, because this state says we're going to redraw the maps so we can have a certain voter outcome. Then the government should step in. That is how I think big government should work. It should work to oversee the Constitution being applied in little government.
Do you believe that the state government is incapable of making decisions for their people?
No. I think that's my point. When you have the right moral compass, when it's being applied properly, when we stand on the Constitution of the United States instead of letting it stand on us, when we apply it correctly instead of just talking about it. No, people are capable of regulating themselves, there's no doubt. I mean, we have different kinds of policies and procedures. We have 10 commandments, for that matter. So it's not about trying to control people, but it's about creating. When Moses came down, and using this as an example, and he had the 10 commandments, they were given as a rule and a guide. They were given to help create a society with a better mindset, not to destroy individuality, but to help facilitate and foster the development of a country that stands on that concept of united we stand, divided we fall. A house divided cannot stand. And we have to have something to regulate that divisive attack when the people have been contaminated. See, I think the biggest problem is the contaminated information that people have grabbed and embraced because they want to believe it, because it feeds into their thinking. But it creates, as I said, a divisive atmosphere. History shows that people who have been manipulated by the thoughts of autocrats or manipulated by the people who are hungry for power have destroyed themselves. This is one of the greatest countries that ever existed. Right to your statement about, is America great? Yes, it is. It's all. No, people can manage their own mindset, but then you have rules and regulations. That's why God gave the rules and regulations to his people so that they can be, as I read in a book once, it says scripture is given for instructions, for truth, not to suppress, not to oppress, I should say. People have to learn individually. In the military, the Marine Corps, I was taught how to subdue my passions. I'm still human and make mistakes. I still do things. Yes, I do. But in that regimental environment, there's a structure. And the mission is essential in that structure. I learned that it brings about a more peaceful atmosphere in your environment. That's what we need in this country, a more peaceful.
The 10th Amendment states, the power is not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people.
Okay.
Should the U.S. enforce its borders?
Yes. I think that we should enforce our borders without changing the fact that we're a home of the free and land of the brave, without changing that fact. Ask China about the Great Wall. How did that work out? Eventually. What was it, Russia? The Great Wall. It's a divisive concept. There will always be issues, no matter what society, no matter where the society is. There will always be issues. And the wise people develop ways and methods of peacefully, harmoniously dealing with those issues and not doing it from some biased, racist, some antagonistic mindset, because all that does is antagonize the devil to do more. So, border control and regulation by all means, but with humane methods. Don't put children in cages. Don't take children away from their families.
The United States of America is known to be the land of the free and the home of the brave. We have welcomed immigrants from all over the world throughout our history. Why should this change now?
It shouldn't change. It shouldn't change. As I said, we should modify borders. It shouldn't change. Almost everybody in this country, okay, I mean, I was born here. For you. There were people who were not born here, who migrated here. they're immigrants. A lot of the people who hold positions of power, their ancestors were immigrants. So immigration is not the issue, it's the application of how to properly control it. That is the issue. We should continue to welcome immigrants. But we have to have things in place, methods in place that fairly scrutinizes those who are coming into this country as immigrants.
Do you agree with this statement? Without border enforcement, immigrants can cross at will, bypass our quotas and vetting system. Basically, skip the line of people trying to get into this country by following our regulations.
You know, that's one of those what did they call them? No-win scenarios. Regardless of what you do, are people who are determined, excuse me, people who are determined will do what they are determined to do. It may take them time to do so. So am I speaking about against border regulations or dealing with laws at the border? No. What I'm saying, as I said before, we develop methods without racial bias. If you build a wall, at some point, some place in that wall, somebody is going to dig a tunnel under that. If you build a wall that's not manned, every 15, 20 feet of that, someone will blow a hole in that wall before you get there. So I'm saying, finding the right methods, finding the right humane methods. No matter what you do, and history proves me right. No matter what you do, someone at some time will find a way to circumvent it.
If you were sick and had the choice to get treated anywhere in the world, where would you choose to get treated?
United States of America, no doubt. I mean, there are other countries who have some specialties, specialists, but then overall, our medical process is beyond rapport. It's how we apply it. America, United States, my home here. There's no doubt about that. Problem comes with accountability, not accountability, application. That's where you get the problems. Application. Unbiased.
Should the U.S. change its healthcare system?
No, improve it. Well, let me take that back. I spoke too soon. Change it if we are improving it. There's some things that could be moved here, moved there, costs. You have homeless people who get sick. We have law that says that if a person comes to the hospital, no matter who you are, they have to treat you. But we have to take money as being a primary function of our healthcare system. It can't be about money. In hospitals and doctors, I understand capitalism. But there's certain things that should exceed and supersede money, and that is the care of another human being. Because in our financial system, the way things are established, it's people that don't have the money to pay for the medical care that they may eventually need as they develop in life. So I think that is one, if you want to say something wrong with our medical system, I think that would be the biggest issue, is money.
What is your position on global warming?
World changes. I think that, yes, global warming, global damage is caused by changes. Changes in what we use. Once upon a time, they didn't have cars, so there was no exhaust system. Changes bring about. Change brings about change. Modernization brings about change and contamination. We need to preserve the earth by understanding that the things that we have done in the sense of progress of science, and development and growth has presented change. And we need to deal with that change. Yeah, global warming is an issue.
The Earth has been going through temperature changes ever since it has been in existence. How is this time different than the past?
You said it. The changes in what we do, what we use, modernization, contamination, moving to electric cars identifies an understanding that there needs to be a change. That's what's different now. Time is the difference. Human evolution is the difference. The things that we as humans have invented and that we use, that's the difference. And those change, those differences, those things that we do for the betterment and the benefit of us all, they bring about change in the earth that we live on. It's affected by some of those things.
The US population is less than 10% of the world's population. How is the US to stop climate change?
Could you repeat that last part?
The US population is less than 10% of the world's population. How is the US to stop climate change?
Okay, I thought that's what you said. I'm not saying the US can stop climate change, but it can help improve the conditions on this planet by working in harmony with others who have the same mindset. Having political arguments about global warming or climate change, and I believe it is, and I believe it's not. There's no saying. It's best to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. So we need to have reform, intelligent, scientific, wise reform, or we will destroy ourselves and this planet. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but time will tell.
There are some in our country that believe the police should be defunded. What is your position on defunding the police?
No. Now, people want to agree with me. And like you say, there's some who say, well, we need to defund the police. That's not the answer. Defunding the police is not the answer. What we need to do is we need to bring some changes to the structure of policing. We need to have more accountability, more rigid accountability, governing the police. No more blue wall. And that starts with leadership. No more qualified immunity. Oh, we don't need to defund the police. We need to restructure the police and hold them accountable so that they can't hide behind each other. Even if we have to come up with a separate, independent agency that's not attached to a particular state when they have an issue, a racial issue, or any kind of other issue with the police. Stopping these things, not today, not tomorrow, but to hold people accountable, to let people know you can run, you can hide, you may get by, but you won't get away. You will pay. And that's what needs to happen when it comes to dealing with the police. Accountability, no qualified immunity. You know what that does? That allows you to go on a rampage. That allows you to say, pull over, get out your car. What did I do? Well, for what? Because I told you to. No. Wrong mindset. The laws of this country are not at fault. The application of it, and who is applying it. Well, no, defunding the police, not the answer. Holding them accountable, training them properly, structuring the police so that they know that they cannot do certain things and think that they buddy is going to look out. Oh, the chief is going to look out for me. No. The chief does. He's going to prison with you. No, I'm not for defunding the police. I think there should be some changes, no doubt. Serious changes. No qualified immunity.
A role of the government is to provide peace and safety to its people. One of the ways the government does this is through the police. The police's job is to protect and serve. Do you agree with this definition statement?
Of course I do. That's my point. That's what I made. Well, I made my point with a slight deviation in the point that I was making. The deviation was accountability, training. Accountability, training. Even having a third party that makes a decision. So I agree with you. Yeah.
Abortion is a hot topic. Where do you stand on abortion?
So people use God to facilitate their policies and their procedures, to enforce their mindset or their thinking. They use God for that. You know, the word abortion is not in the Bible. It's not used in the Bible. People say, okay, the Bible says we're operating from the premise that thou shalt not kill. That life begins at, what's the word? Inception. There's no heartbeat. There's no pulse. I believe that a woman should have the right and control over her own body. If she's going to be punished, let God punish her. It's not my job. They use thou shalt not kill, but they also forget that in Ecclesiastes, it says there is a time and a season and a time to every purpose under the heavens. It even says there's a time to kill and a time not to kill. Not saying that an abortion is killing, but I'm saying when we're talking radical concepts, hiding behind God, having a God complex, thinking that we can improve on what God has presented to us, what God has given to us, deciding for other, controlling, manipulating other people. Women, I believe in, I'm a pro-choice person, regardless of who likes it or don't. I'm a pro-choice. Your decision. The rules that they're coming up with now, women, rape, incest, those things that an abomination. And then they're, but God allowed you to get pregnant. Let's be real. Come on now. God created the tools and the ability for a woman to get pregnant going all the way back to Eve. But he did not instruct men to rape women. He did not instruct incest. So we can't put God in that. That's a man-made thing. We can't hide behind God and talk about this murder. That's not murder. If it is murder, let God deal with that. Because I promise you this, each and every one of us at some point in time will face whatever we call the Creator. No one will live forever. Two things promised: death and then judgment. I had a mother. She's gone now. I strongly support her decision for her own body. I strongly support that. So I'm pro-life.
Murder is against the law.
And
Science tells us that the fetus inside the woman's body can feel pain, can hear the mother, and premature babies, fetuses, have survived outside of the woman's body as early as 20 weeks. Why is abortion different?
well, that depends on what you call murder. Define murder. It's not murder. We have to look at the definition of that word, and it can be applied in any way you want to. In science has been proven to be wrong. It's not about science. It's about freedom. It's about being able to make a decision, right, wrong, or indifferent, where you are held accountable by God, not by man. You see, we pick out our little pet peeves or little pet sins or little pet categories, and then we say, oh no, this is murder, this is that. But there are some things that are just as contaminating and harmful. But to enslave the mind of another human being, just their body, but to enslave their minds with control of this nature is against the Constitution of the United States of America, regardless of how you verbalize it. Abortion, and I'm not saying that it's something that must be done, but I'm saying it's a heavy burden and choice that an individual should be given the opportunity to make on their own.
At conception, there is only a fertilized egg, a cell. Then it splits and so forth. That is not a conscious life. At what stage during pregnancy is there life?
I would have to be a biologist or a doctor to be intelligent about that particular answer, but if you want to know my opinion, when you hear a heartbeat, and it can determine a pulse, we have a living being. But when you first, the spermatozoid, the sperm enters the egg, there's no life there. As I said, no pulse, no heartbeat. Now, as it progresses, you get a pulse and a heartbeat. That is the determination in itself, again, that the individual needs to make, and it should not be regulated by a man or a lie choosing religion as the tool.
When it comes to incarceration, doing time for doing a crime, there is a debate about racism and unjust bias in the prosecution and sentencing of individuals' people. Do you believe this is the case?
No doubt. It's a fact. The numbers have proven it to be so. Why does that happen? We need to change that. We need to work on that. But the truth is that it happens. Yes, it is true. There's no doubt in my mind about that. I don't have to believe it. I don't have to believe it. I've experienced it. I know it to be so.
How would you fix it?
People ought to be held accountable for the rights and the wrongs that they do. If we don't have a balance, as you asked the first question about having a balanced government, if we don't have the balanced application of the laws of this land, we can't just talk about it, we have to be about it. To fix it, we need to screen the application of it. And when we find a misutilization of it, we need to deal with it and hold whoever is applying that misutilization of it accountable. No if, no ands. When a person realizes that if they are caught, and they may take the chance, I mean, you're not going to change anything overnight. The mind of people, contaminated thinking, that takes time, but it won't change if you don't start putting things into play that will cause these changes to be effective. It won't change. To talk about it. For years, we've been talking about police brutality, and it's still happening. This young man that was shot in the back of his head. Okay, an opinion. How in the world can you be on top of a man? I'm a combat veteran. Okay, 2 wars. Be on top of a man, pressing his head in the ground, be afraid of a taser, and have the ability to hold his head in the ground and reach behind you, pull your gun out and shoot him in the back of the head. I don't have to be an independent investigator to see the logic of that being wrong. So it is how we monitor it and how we give accountability for the misutilization of it.
Laws and justice. During this COVID pandemic, government officials were letting prisoners out of jail. At the same time, some of the US population was told if they violated the COVID distancing practices, they could face fines and jail time of up to 1 year. What are your thoughts on this as it pertains to justice reform?
Well, I don't think it has to do with justice reform. It has to do with the decision-making policies and process of those who were applying the justice. So I guess we have to talk about justice reform. Inmates, tell you a story. I had a nephew that was an inmate. He called me and told me they had them still working, still doing certain things in the midst of the COVID pandemic, pestilence. They were giving them no protection. That's here in the state of Florida. No protection. It's like they didn't matter. But no matter what anyone says, they're still human beings. So that concept and how that was applied as far as letting people out and as you said, you know, laws and justice. There should have been a method in place to deal with the health of the inmates. And you have some people that were in jail, they were not violent offenders. And as you go down the list of trying to make a decision and evaluate certain breaks in the law, I don't think that was a bad decision. I don't think that when you say people who were out of prison were being dealt with for certain practices that the government had presented to us. It's like breaking any other law. They should have been in jail too. Ones that were in jail for breaking the law. And if that was a law, a mandate, whatever, and they broke it, then they should have went to jail. Why didn't they? Because they were screaming their constitutional rights and they feel like they were being treated as slaves. No, they don't know nothing about being slaves. And that was to protect life, not to take life. And anytime you're trying to protect life, you have to use different methods. Different methods. We should work good on those methods to protect it. This is my answer to that.
Do you think the federal and state government has been doing a good job handling the COVID outbreak?
I want to go back to Trump and the initiation of it. I say no. If you want to go forward, because it became necessary, I said they're doing the best they can dealing with the obstructionism that they're facing. Yes.
In what way has it been good?
It's been good because they've been trying to come up with remedies. It's been good because they're trying to find ways to keep people alive. Simply said.
In what way has it been mishandled?
It's been mishandled by the lies and deceit, the misinformation, the contamination of people, their thought processes, because some people want to use it for political gain, and it's the right against the left. This is about life and death. This is not about Republican. This is not about Democrat. This is about life and death. This is not about politics. People hide behind their political parties. They hide behind political parties to be able to facilitate their contaminated thinking. It has been mishandled because of our politics, our political stances.
How would you handle the COVID pandemic?
Well, I don't think I could handle it any better than what has already been done to try to inform the public, to make the people wiser, to give the necessary warnings, giving the information that people need to avoid and to treat this particular contamination, this pandemic, this COVID. Information is essential. Once you've given that information, it depends on the individual. It falls on the individual how they process and use that information. Chew the meat, spit out the bones. I don't think you could have done much better, but maybe faster. And then that could be debatable because they had to come up with a remedy. For the magnitude of this pestilence, I think the United States of America has done well, especially with the obstructionism that those who are trying to fix the problem faced, dealing with those who are trying to downplay it. Let's be honest, the people that are living up here, it wasn't affecting them. It was affecting the people that were living down here.
Education of our children has made its way into the national media. What is your thoughts on our education system?
I think our teachers are some of the best in the world. That's what the system is concerned. But the application of laws and personal opinions, I think that's the contamination of our education system. Critical race theory. Okay? Truth is truth. Some truths we don't want to hear, but it's true. And sometimes you have to deal with hard truths and keep things from happening in the future that happened in the past. And sometimes you have to display or talk about atrocities so that people can actually see what an atrocity is and give them an opportunity to think before they go out and commit atrocities. But if you hide atrocities from people, if you hide truth from people, and they have no understanding or they have no visualization of the horror of it, and they can go about doing any contaminated thing they want to. So I think that our education system is not as good as some countries. I've been in Japan. We talk about the uniform, their system. That's what how they treat their children in the educational system. We have a lot of freedom here, even to the way that we dress, the clothes that we can wear. That's the beauty of the United States of America. I have no problem with that. That's the beauty of it. And that's why some countries, some larger countries, when we talk about science and other things, they may be advancing quicker, or they may have some thoughts and names that we haven't gotten to yet, because they're so strict on their education system. I'm opposed to dumbing down our children. I'll put it like that.
What should be taught to our children?
Well, when I went to school, I mean, they taught math, they taught history, science, biology, basic subjects. And when I went to college, the structure was basically the same. When you talk about what should be taught as far as history, that's why it's called history. It took place. Sometimes it's atrocious, but it's history. And as I said before, we need to teach some things to keep them from happening again, so that people can see how horrendous they are. So I think children should be taught the truth and the basic rudiments of education, reading, math, and arithmetic. We have science. We have other discoveries that we as an advanced civilization, because remember before, we used to meet in caves and catacombs. We don't do that anymore. So there is an advancement. And I think that the mind, our greatest weapon, I think that should be taught to advance as well.
What should not be taught to our children and or left to the discretion of the parents?
Hate. I don't think that hate based upon race, creed, or color should be taught to our children. As I said earlier, you asked what should be taught to them. Math, history, arithmetic, hate, no. To differentiate between people based upon some difference that person presents, that shouldn't be taught. Other military and Vietnam, 1969, fighting back-to-back whites, black, from Vietnamese, Puerto Ricans, all kinds of people. At that point in time, they didn't care what color they were or what their ethnic background was, but I cared about their proficiency with that F-16 that we were using. Helping me stay alive and me helping them stay alive. So that taught me something. I bring that up to identify it taught me something. It put me past the color of somebody's skin. It made me move towards the thought process or the contamination of the thought process. I think the kids should be taught how to do that, how to move beyond color, how to move beyond racism, or move beyond those differences. I think other than the basic rudiments of education, reading, writing, and arithmetic, and those things, biology, trigonometry, those things like that, social studies, history, to help people overcome bias in a shape, form, or fashion. Those things should be taught as well. Now, pertaining to the parents, you can't regulate what parents teach in their homes. They say what they want to say with their children as they're putting them to bed. But when they teach what they've been taught, I should say, what they've been taught is presented in the public life, then there should be things in place, methods in place in the schools to teach them something contrary to what has been buried in their thought process. And that gives them the option to determine whether they want to believe the left or believe the right. But if you just have it one way, that stunts our growth.
This has been an interview with James Thompson, write-in candidate running for governor, state of Florida.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. I may sound a little radical in some things, but I'm a combat veteran. I stated 2 wars. I fought for this country. I retired, and one of the things I gave in my retirement speech was I couldn't do it anymore because I'm going to different countries and leaving young Americans, leaving their bodies there, or leaving their spirits there, their lives there, and then bringing their bodies back home. So we as veterans, we've given a lot for this country, and I at this point in my age, I decided to say something, and I wanted somebody to hear me say it and have a platform to say it, that this country means more to me than some political party, some political viewpoint, the right or the left. The Democrats absolutely wrong. The Republicans absolutely wrong. Not caring about the people, only caring about their particular argument. And that has perturbed me. That has caused me great pain in my heart, because I've seen so many young men die. And then we get to this point where we have people who have not put any kind of effort to protect this country. But by that I mean boots on the ground. Boots on the ground. None of them held a weapon in their hand and felt the heat of a bullet as it passed by their head. But they're making determinations and they're making decisions that are causing us to kill each other. And I decided to do this right in because so many gave so much for this country for it to be destroyed by greed and a desire for power. That's why I'm here. Thank you, sir, for the opportunity to say this.